Hi guys, welcome to this week's Paint and Ramble. I was going to say what's on the desk, but it's not. Obviously there is stuff on the desk, but that's not what this video is. So, I was working on some Primaris Reavers, kind of got them to a stage where I'm pretty happy. I could do a base in them. That's probably the only thing I do really at the minute. Not too sure about doing some glowy effects in the jump packs. But I was talking about painting dreadnoughts and stuff. I'm out of primer, and I wasn't going to go for a 15-minute drive to buy one can of primer, so I'll get it tomorrow when I'm in work. So what I done was I airbrushed up a 3-man unit of aggressors, a 5-man intercessor squad. The lieutenant was already airbrush base coated, and I airbrushed up my banner. So these are the only models that I primed for myself, for Blood Angels that I could work on, so I said I'd do them. If I push these back out of the way for a minute, I'll show you where the Reaver's finished up. Okay, so trying to get them in shot. This is kind of where I finished up in them. A couple of quick edge highlights. The details and all are more or less done. What I was thinking about doing was doing some OSL effects on these two vents here, or the thrusters, but I might do their eye lenses green. After that I don't think I'm going to do much else. These guys have some kind of panel. I'm going to have to do detail on that and do the wire. I'll probably do the wire like a blue or purple colour, just so it contrasts with the actual models themselves. But and this is the sergeant here with his black shoulder pads. Other than that guys, I'm going to call them done. I used them in a game recently and it did not go too well. So that seems to be the general theme of me playing games, is they're not going well. So I'm going to go and get my paint set up, get some brushes and stuff ready, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about the game. Okay guys, so I'm just going to start with the aggressors. What I'm going to do first though is I will read you the list that I played. It was last week's game. I'm not going to get a game in this week. It's Thursday now. But I played a game last week against Gene Stealer Cult. Update later. Okay, so it was a 1,500 point game that we played. And again, the Redemptor Dreadnought did not do anything and died straight away. Mental Onslaught absolutely destroyed him. I messed up the deployment. It was I think it's a spearhead deployment where it comes to like a point. I'll do the point here so you can see what I mean. But I don't know what I was thinking. I went and put my Librarian Dreadnought at the tip of the point, and I was just like, right, what am I after doing here? I realised that halfway through turn 1 shooting, when the Librarian Dreadnought had like 1 wound left or something from 3 mining lasers hitting him. Right, so I ran a battalion and a vanguard detachment at 1,500 points. Yeah, the guy I was playing had I think it was a battalion. No, the brigade. It was the brigade detachment. So there was unbelievable amount of troops in it. Now I originally we were only meant to play 1,000 points, but we upped it to 1,500. So I didn't really throw in much more anti-tank, so to speak. So I'll read you the list anyway. First off, we have a battalion detachment coming in at 1,002 points, and that's for 5 CPs. So we've got the standard Captain Slamgunius loadout, Space Marine Captain, Artisan of War, Angel's Wing, Jump Pack, Storm Shield, and Thunderhammer. And then obviously you pay 1 CP to make him Dead Company, and Artisan of War is the Warlord trait. After that then I have Librarian Dreadnought for 142 points. He has the Quickening, Wings of Sanguinius, Furioso Fist, and a Stormbolter. And then I have a Lieutenant with a Jump Pack, Mastercrafted Bolt Gun, and a Power Sword, which is this guy. I don't run him as a Primaris Lieutenant, I run him as a standard one so I can give him the Jump Pack. Troops, I have an Intercessor squad with 5 intercessors. One of them's a sergeant and one of them has an auxiliary grenade launcher for 85 points. I have a scout squad for 80 points. I've got an Astartes shotgun with a camo cloak for some reason. I think I had like 1 point or 2 points or something. The sergeant also has, oh, I gave them all camo cloaks. That would definitely have helped in the game. So as you can see, I'm very good when it comes to my rules in game. So basically, it's a 5-man scout squad. You've got a shotgun, a heavy bolter, the rest have bolt guns and camo cloaks. Then I have a 10-man Space Marine squad. Sergeant has a combi grav and power sword, a heavy bolter and a plasma gun. That's coming in at 168 points. 2 elites is 2 squads of deck company. All have jump packs. In the 4th squad of 8, so I've got a bolt gun, power fist, bolt gun, chainsword, bolt gun, chainsword. Right, so there's only a bolt gun and a power fist in that one, and then the rest are bolt gun, chainsword. The second one has... oh, the second one's Sanguinary Guard, sorry. Gave him the death masks for 8 points, the Angelus bolt gun and Carmine axe, Angelus bolt gun, power fist, and then 2 with the Angelus bolt gun and then Carmine swords. So the deck company was 169 points, Sanguinary Guard are 149. That's the 2 elites. And then in the Vanguard, I brought a chaplain with a jump pack. I gave him a bolt gun instead of a bolt pistol because you get the extra range. And then I have the standard Sanguinary Priest with a bolt gun, chainsword and jump pack. Again, giving them the bolt gun to get the extra range, it's still free. So Primaris Ancient, and then for this is in the Vanguard now. So the chaplain's 90 points, the Sanguinary Priest is 86 points. Then I have a Primaris Ancient for 69 points. He just comes as he is. He's got a bolt rifle. I have a Redemptor Dreadnought coming in at 163 points. He has 2 Fragstorm grenade launchers. He's an Icarus rocket pod. Left arm ranged weapon is a heavy flamer. He's a Redemptor fist and a heavy onslaught Gatling cannon. And then I have a 5-man Reaver squad of bolt carmines and heavy bolt pistols. So that was the list. That's all that's there. That was 1,500 points. Just get rid of my Clash of Clans notifications. It didn't go well because, first of all, it was the first time playing Gene Stealer Cult, playing against Gene Stealer Cult, so that didn't go down well to start with. But what I think I'm about to knock on that. Sorry. What I done wrong was deployment, right? Because if you imagine the tip of a spear, so it's like this, and it goes across your side of the table. I deployed my whole army at the front of that because I was going first. I had less drops, I was going first. I said, "Grant, deployed all along the front line, deadly. I'm going to get up here in this guy's face. I'm going to shut him down quick and early on." No, that did not happen. Okay? And let me tell you why that didn't happen. Well, for obviously the Gene Stealer Cult have all the blip counters, so his whole army was deployed as blips. I didn't know what was what or where was what or anything, but he had iced it up anyway, deployed everything at the front, and I was looking at it and I was like, yeah, there's something not right here. The Librarian Dreadnought being out the front, I think, is what that was, and I had the unit deck company and stuff behind him. But I deployed the Redemptor Dreadnought on the hard right flank because the idea was that Dreadnought would be firing into... He had the Achilles Ridge Runner, he had 2 Rock Grinders, and they all had stuff in them, bar the Achilles obviously, but they all had mine lasers, so I wanted to try and get some firepower into them and slow them down and make them less effective. But what happened instead was, just make sure I'm on camera here, what happened instead was my opponent seized the initiative, and I was getting ready to do my death company before the first round jump forward move, the stratagem. So I opted against doing that. So he had to obviously show his whole army then, because I wasn't going first, he was going first, which was grand, no biggie. He played, I think it was a 3-point stratagem at the start of the game to bring D3 units or something like that in, or put D3 blips in as reserves. So that was grand. He put a Patriarch, a unit of Gene Stealers, and something else, I think, is what went into Deep Strike Reserve instead. So at the end of turn 1, what happens? Hard right flank. I have deployed my whole army at the very... I'm off camera, sorry. I've deployed my whole army at the very, very front of this, I think it was 18 inches up at the tip, and then out to the sides was 6 or something. My whole army was basically centralised and at the front of the deployment thing. So he basically could land anywhere behind me and there was nothing I could do to stop him because I had completely left my back lines open. which was a big no-no. So what I know for the next game is to make sure, I used to do it with Tau and I was doing it in the tournament as well, because with Tau you could sit that far back and not worry about anything because your firepower reached across the board. I left him plenty of space to pop up my back lines and come in and do me serious damage, which my opponent kindly obliged. So in comes the Patriarch. I'm not within 24 inches, whatever way it worked out, with the Librarian Dreadnought to deny the Mental Onslaught, and I think he left my Redemptor Dreadnought on 1 wound after that, because the Redemptor Dreadnought was Leadership 7 and Genestealer Patriarch was Leadership 8, so he was constantly +1 to the roll, but I just couldn't match his roll to stop him getting any further with it. So he done me some serious harm. Every time I've played the Redemptor Dreadnought, turn 1 it's been completely wiped out. I think 1 game out of 3 I played it or something, it's got to fire, and it didn't do any damage when it did fire, which wasn't very helpful. But it was downhill from there. So in the end anyway, most of my army's gone on the right flank, and my opponent is slowly moving into my central block, but there's stuff getting in on the central block from the front lines. There was another unit of Genestealers coming on, and he was bringing in extra units of Genestealers with a psychic power and stuff. I think we played the ruling on it wrong, but we agreed before, like, basically you're meant to pay for summoning when you're making your army, and we weren't really too sure on how that worked, so we both agreed that he could just summon them on. I didn't think it'd be that big of a deal. It was a very big deal. He summoned like 8 or 9 Genestealers. I think at one stage he summoned, by the end of the game he'd summoned 2 whole units of Genestealers extra. So that's 100% why I lost. Yeah, it was nothing to do with my bad deployment or bad understanding of the rules at all. So I had a scout squad holding objective. He had his jackals constantly plinking away at them. So the scouts got taken out. Tactical squad progressively got taken out. The reavers got taken out. I had a squad of intercessors holding an objective, but between the Broodlord and the Genestealers, they got taken out. I think if you sit back and think about it, you're starting to see a general theme in how the game went. So he's pretty much tabling me, and I had my chaplain, my lieutenant, my captain, and my Librarian Dreadnought all in combat. And I thought, because I had the fly keyword, I could fall back from combat but still charge into another combat. So I pulled my captain, lieutenant, chaplain, and Librarian Dreadnought out of combat, because the Librarian Dreadnought had fly from Wings of Sanguinius, from the psychic phase before the charge phase and all. So basically, obviously the captains and stuff moved in movement phase, Librarian moved in psychic phase with the spell. Grant. I says, right, I'm going to move these out of combat, and he says, okay. So I moved them out, shot into the Genestealers and Patriarch and all that kind of stuff. Grant. He said, if you have any charges, and I said, yeah, these are going to charge. And when we went through the rules, there's no rule that actually says you can fall out of combat with the fly keyword, and in the Blood Angels Codex anyway, and charge into another one. So basically there's only a couple of units in the game that can do this. Some of them have special rules for it, some of them have stratagems, but Blood Angels are not one of them. So I basically took 4 HQs out of combat, 4 characters, put them right in front of a unit of Genestealers. It was like 8 or 9 Genestealers and the Broodlord, and could not do anything about it. And I was kind of looking at it and I was like, what am I after doing? It was a fun, friendly game, so there's no point getting rattled about it, but I was annoyed at myself more for not realising that was the way the rule worked. Because Tau, you know, you jump out of combat, you shoot, and that's kind of all you do. But no, my opponent was alright about it, bar the fact that he completely nearly tabled me. And I did not have anything. His minor lasers were just chewing through me each turn, a couple of wounds here and there. Losing the Librarian Dreadnought, I think the top of turn 2 was very detrimental to how the rest of the game is going to go. But losing Slamgunius and all, it just did not go well. Like, I know he's a great model rules wise, I know he's very effective if you can get him into combat, but that's 2 games running now where I failed to get the use out of them for the points that I'm sinking into them, the CPs and the Warlord traits. So the game went bad. Okay, that's the upshot of it. The game went bad again, but the way I'm kind of looking at it at the minute is I'm chopping and changing my list every week when I'm going for a game. And some people would say, you know, you need to stick to one list to try and get to know it, and list changing isn't going to do much for you. You're not going to learn anything. But I think I'm learning a lot. I'm going through all the different Blood Angels units that I have, like in the codex. So these guys here, I actually sat down and read the codex before I went to this game, like properly read through the different units and stuff, and before I made the army list to see if there was anything in particular that I actually wanted to try out. So I took the deck company. The Reavers were nearly painted at that stage, so I was like, right, I might as well give these boys a try, see if they're any good. These guys, if they don't move, can stand. Obviously, if they don't move, they're standing still. Say hello to this genius right here. They can fire twice if they stand still, which is kind of interesting, because if you take the bolter ones, they're putting out an absolutely crazy amount of shots. Obviously I don't have the bolter ones because I have 2 sets of easy to build ones. But that's what I was thinking, like, I don't, as much as I want the repulsor, obviously it's cool, it's a flying land raider and all the rest of it. Just the usual, you know yourself, can of green. I don't think sinking such a big points drop into the repulsor itself is the most effective way of getting these boys across the board. So what I was actually thinking of doing was getting the 6 of them painted up, running a massive blob of 6 of them, because they have 2 wounds each. If I could keep them in cover, they'll have a bit of a better save. But these guys can advance and fire their weapons, because whatever way. Yeah, give me a second here. That's the codex, by the way. That just hit the ground pretty hard. Okay, Hell Blasters, Assault Squad, Dreadnoughts. I'm still getting to grips with where everything is in the Blood Angels Codex at the minute. Like, I used to know where everything was in the Tau Codex, and I knew the rules inside and out. No, that's not what I want. No, too far. I haven't, just looking at Terminator Assault Squad, I haven't got around to making mine yet, but I will eventually. Just commissions and stuff. Here we go. Aggressor Squad, Firestorm. Models in this unit can fire twice if they remain stationary during the turn, including when firing Overwatch. So you imagine you're charging a 6-man unit of these guys with Flamestorm gauntlets are 8 inches, assault 2d6. It does actually say assault there, that's what I wanted to figure out. So these guys are assault 2d6 each. So that's 24 auto hitting, well, potentially 24 auto hitting flamer shots or more. I'm not doing maths well here on the spot. Basically, you have 2 dice each. There's 6 guys. 6 by maybe maths one way. Anyway, they're strength 4 flamers, no AP, 1 damage. This weapon automatically hits its target. So all you have to do in Overwatch is basically just roll dice. You're going to have to wound. You just have to roll up your hits and wound, which is very good. But the other rule I wanted to talk about was relentless advanced models in this unit do not suffer any penalty to their hit rolls for advancing and firing assault weapons. So these guys are movement 5, so they could potentially move 11 inches. With the auto Bullstorm gauntlets, they have an 18-inch range. So that's 29 inches, assault 6. And they've two of them things. I think that's how it works. So regardless, if you had a 3-man squad with them, they'd be firing out 18 shots at 29 inches if you got a maximum advance move, which is very, very good. Like, if I was playing Tau and I had Space Marines running at me at that speed, firing that many shots, I would be getting worried very quick, let me tell you. So yeah, I'm going to get these guys painted up and give them another try, because I think if you read your rules the way I keep talking about and never seem to do it myself, there is actually some pretty good stuff in there. So they're auto hitting, all you have to do is wound. So if you're worried about messing with the wounds, bring a lieutenant, or have a lieutenant nearby to help you out with re-rolling the ones. I wouldn't be too worried about it, to be honest with you. Like, they're strength 4, toughness 5, 2 wounds apiece. If you take a sergeant, he's got 3 attacks, and they have power fists, which are, they're effectively power fists. Auto bolt storm gauntlets and flame storm gauntlets, they're the same same profiles. So range is melee, type is melee, strength is by 2, so you'd be hitting at strength 8, so power fist effectively. Minus 3 AP and D3 damage. When attacking with this model, you must subtract 1 from the hit roll, so effectively the same as a power fist. But don't forget, if you're fighting in combat, you have a chance to, if you stood still, you get to fire twice. So yeah, you'd be rolling. If I had the 6-man unit of these, I know I'm talking pure baloney at this stage, so I'm just trying to figure this out for myself, see if it's worth the point sink. If you had a 6-man unit of these, it'd be 2d6 by 6. Oh wait, hold on, I'm confused myself here now. So it'd be 2 dice per guy, which would be 12 dice. That's a lot of auto hitting attacks. I know it's only strength 4, but through weight of dice, you should definitely whittle down your opponent. So I think there is good potential for these guys, especially now that we have established that they get the red horse. So if they charge, or if they are charged, they get +1 to wound. So instead of wounding on 3s, you'd be wounding on 2s, stuff like that, which is very, very good. It's just because the fact that they're speed 5, they're slow, but obviously you're just going to advance these guys every time you move them to get them up the board as quick as possible, in and out of cover as quick as possible, and into your opponent's face, so they have to deal with them. They have a 3-up save, so if you're in cover, you're going to have a 2-up save, which is what you want, unless your opponent has a armor piercing modifier, AP -1, you'd be just still at a 3. So they should be pretty survivable. This would be a great block to run up in front of Sergeant or Captain Slamgunius, I should say. I was going to call him Sergeant Slamgunius, they're demoting him. Because, right, there's 2 wounds each, so it's 2, 4, 6, so you'd be looking at 12 wounds to get through before you can get to the captain. Unless, of course, you have a sniper or something that can get targeted characters. But not everyone has that option. So yeah, I think my plan, I was chatting to another chap there earlier on, he's in our group as well, who pointed out that a Storm Raven, because we were talking about the Storm Raven, he pointed out to me that a Storm Raven is also the same points as I think it's 2 of the Crimson Hunters or something he was saying, and I was just like, oh, that makes me a sad panda. Like, Storm Raven's probably my best option for access to last cannons and multi-meltas that I can actually get into my opponent's face, because it's not fully built, I got it second hand, but it's a good way of getting my Death Company or my Assault Squad or my Sanguinary Guard or anything up the board pretty quickly into my opponent's face. I think it's like a movement characteristic of 40 or something as its base movement. So if it stays in flight mode, not hover mode, you're looking at a -1 to hit you, which will give you a bit more survivability. It's just the fact that it's so expensive point wise, it's a little off-putting. I want to run it in the list, but I don't know if I can have the points for it. If there was something that could transport Primaris as an actual transport and not a heavy support slot, we need a dedicated transport, I would probably be all over that, because I'd be just running aggressors up into your face, dropping them out, and just going to town. You wouldn't even have to get the tank to go the whole way up the board. You could move and advance the tank turn 1, deploy these guys at the start of turn 2, advance them, and you're probably going to be in range of your opponent then in your turn 2, with flamers, which will be very good for you and not your opponent, because you're talking barbecue town, Flavour Town. But I dug out, when I was digging these guys out, I dug out my Storm Talon gunship, the smaller Storm Raven, which is just guns. It's not the, I think it's a Stormhawk Interceptor is the real shooty flyer. My Storm Talon is modelled to have 2 last cannons and a twin assault cannon, so it's very, I can throw it into a tank, or I can throw the last cannons into a tank, or throw the assault cannons into infantry or a lighter tank. Still get a bit of damage on it. So what I was thinking of doing was essentially what I'm trying to do is get through all the Blood Angels units I have. Obviously I'd like them to all be painted, but beggars can't be choosers, especially in a commission painters game. But what I want to do is try and get through all the Blood Angel stuff I have, see what works, what doesn't work. So like, I'd rather take a Death Company squad over an Assault squad, because with Death Company you have a 6-up Feel No Pain, you're getting an extra attack on the charge, and you can give them jump packs as well. So I'm not going to say never, but I'm probably never going to be taking an Assault squad, for that exact reason of, they're not Death Company, so they're not getting an extra attack, they have less survivability. Not that you're going to roll that many 6 plus Feel No Pains, but the fact that it's there means that it'll happen in the most inopportune time for your opponent, which will cause them to have to work harder to remove that unit. So if you're scoring an objective, you roll a 6 up, it's going to mess up your opponent trying to clear you off that objective to win the game. So I don't have any land speeders. I think a land speeder squadron and a couple of bikes would not go amiss. Obviously every chapter should have them. This chapter currently does not, but that's long in the finger kind of stuff we're talking here. I'm going to get my Primaris Librarian painted up. I'll dig out my Terminator Librarian and I'll go through them, see which works better for me. Obviously the normal Librarian or the Terminator Librarian might work out cheaper, so that could be more up my alley, because obviously I'm trying to get as much into my list as possible, make my list as effective as it can be, and if I can save points here and there to add something in or give something a different weapon loadout, I'm going to do it. I have to finish building the Hell Blasters and stuff like that. I think I completely missed the point that I wanted to talk about there. God, it's hard to ramble and keep track of what you're actually rambling about. Essentially what I'm going to try and do is get through all the entries in the Blood Angels Codex, kind of similar to the way I play in War Machine. I know what jacks work, I know what jacks I like, not only the look of, but I like the aesthetic of, I like the rules of. I know I can sacrifice this jack which does X to take a cheaper jack that does X slightly worse, but I can take something else that does Y better, if you get me. So that's why I started taking a good example is why I started taking the Standard Lieutenant over the Primaris Lieutenant. And everyone's probably like, oh well, you get an extra wound, you get this, and that's great, but I can't give my Primaris Lieutenant a jump pack. So my Primaris Lieutenant is speed 6 at all times. My Standard Lieutenant is now speed 12, and I can get to where I need to be with him. I can support my troops across the board, and I can also get up buildings, which is very helpful. So little things like that, you know, that help you save on points here and there are vital for optimizing your list. My list will 100% not be optimized until I have gone through all of the codex at least twice. Mephiston is probably worth having, Dante is probably worth having a go at. I'm not going to try out Gabriel's set because I don't play Flesh Terrors, I play Blood Angels. Yeah, so I'm probably going to have to cut it there because it's coming up on the half-hour mark. I don't really like to go over that. But I'm after getting a lot of base counting done there. I'm after talking a lot of crap about some list ideas. Some ideas will probably work out better than others, but hopefully in the next video I will have played another game with yet another revised list to give you some feedback on and see what works, and all going well I'll be a bit further on with getting these guys painted. So thanks for watching guys, stay tuned for the next update on these guys, and happy wargaming.